Epiphany number 18, work. Now this may seem like a silly epiphany. I think everyone knows that working is the key to the business, of course. But I consider it an epiphany for me. Remember, all these epiphanies are things that I came up to help me. And I realized that there was a period of time in my career, early in my career especially, that I was doing everything but working. And so when I finally really clicked for me that I need to work, that everything else, whether it's even self-improvement, which I'm a big fan of, I don't think people do it enough, or learning your scripts, or reading books, or learning product knowledge, or how to run comparisons, or even following up with clients. And all those things are really just an infrastructure around the central component of work, of doing the actual task of the business, which we'll get into. And if you work but don't do all the other things, you'll have a lot of problems, but you'll have success. If you do all the other things but don't work, you won't. And many times all these other things around it is avoidance. Frankly, even watching this video or attending our Monday trainings, or you need to do those things, but they themselves are not going to have you any success. And the same goes for all the getting licenses and certifications and CHPs and CLUs and planning and all those things. They're just avoidance behavior because none of them are actual work. They're things around work, but not the actual work. So today we're going to talk a little bit about what work is in the context of our business and kind of how to apply that too as well. So let's take a look here. We are here on Epiphany number 18, and this is on Advisor First Wiki M.1.18, so miscellaneous.1.18. And these are two really great quotes that I want to share with you that you can see here. Never mistake achievement for activity, John Wooden. There is nothing so useless as doing efficiently that which should not be done at all. That's fantastic, okay? And we can go into, or I'm sorry, you can visit this on your own, essentially, this module, and I recommend you do and read all these things. If you're serious about this business and about this concept, I think these will help you. If they've helped me, that's the bottom line. Okay, there's also a great video. So let's talk about what work is in the context of our business. So really, there's essentially only three things that at the end of the day are really actual work. Okay, so right here you can see them. I'm gonna bring my tablet down here. Excuse me. Oops. Okay, so you can see number one is prospecting, right? And that is arguably the most important work. Because if you prospect enough, see what I've found is, this is actually in a sense almost an epiphany. You know how you get good at paperwork, or is having clients that said yes, that where you need to do the paperwork to close it. You know how you get good at objections, is get on enough appointments where you have clients in the real world actually asking you questions or having objections, and you have to overcome them, right? Put yourself, it's in the field, right? The more you sweat in training, the less you bleed in the field, but you got to still bleed in the field at some point, so to speak, right? Getting in the field, learning, I talked about this recently, is you can't steer a parked car. Get that car moving, right? So prospecting is by far the most important because everything comes from that. Everything comes from you getting out there and making prospecting attempts, okay? And essentially, excuse me, let me just move this real quick. There we go. Okay, and essentially you can see right here, this is based on our 50,000 income game plan, okay? Make 2 to 4 prospecting attempts per day, 5 days a week, 50 weeks a year, until you've made 1,000 attempts. And that's from Nick Murray, the 1,000. And I've said this before, it's Nick Murray and I'm of course nothing like Nick Murray, but we did independently from each other. Or of course he wouldn't get it from me anyway, but I didn't get this from him. I got this 2 to 4, 5 days a week, 50 weeks a year thing, or ratio, from myself and from observing hundreds of advisors over the years, and now I shouldn't say secretly, but just kind of interviewing them and always making notes. And I found that was pretty much generally, there's exceptions in both extremes, but that's pretty much. And then Nick Murray a few years ago mentioned that, hey, you need to get 1,000 prospecting attempts within a 12-month period. Well, if you do the math, right, if you do 4 prospecting attempts per day, 5 days a week, that's 20. 20 times 50 weeks a year. Let's say you take 2 weeks off, and you shouldn't take those 2 weeks consecutively, by the way. It should be like maybe a week in the summer, a week around Christmas, maybe. Anyway, you do the math, it's 1,000. I suspect most people don't even actually prospect like 1 a month. Okay, you do 2 to 4. In fact, I could stop the video now and tell you, if you did this right here, if you actually did this consistently, everything else will fall into place. Okay, next one, number 2. This is where the rubber hits the road, and that's appointments. Okay, prospecting is great, and it's the most important thing, and it's number 1 for sure. But you've got to get appointments. You have to have a person or a couple, a family, 2 to 4 times a week that will let you tell them your story. Right? We call them first visit client conversations. An appointment, client appointment, brand new appointment, not follow up from last week, not the close, not between the first visit and the close, because sometimes it is multiple visits. But you need to actually go out there and have 2 to 4 new appointments a week. And again, I know people have been in the business for months and haven't had a single appointment, or maybe they have 1 or 2, and then months go by, weeks go by. It's not going to happen. Plus, you get out of your rhythm. Right? It's better to have 2 appointments in 1 day than have 2 appointments in 2 weeks. Right? It's like if you go out there and you play basketball and you play, 3 times a week, and all of a sudden you take off 3 months and you come back, you're not the same, right? You get ring rust, as we call it in MMA. And it's the same thing in our business. You need to be consistent. This is I'm not saying five appointments a day. You're not full time. Most of our training is geared towards part-timers. So I'm talking, you're part-time, you can't do 2 appointments a week? If you literally can't do 2 appointments a week, not 20, not 2 a day, just 2 a week, and yet you're so busy that you can't do that, then honestly, you shouldn't be in this business, because it is part-time, not spare time. It's not a bowling league. It's serious business. But I will tell you, if you start consistently doing that, 2 to 4 new appointments a week, so you're talking about roughly, didn't say it here, but you're talking about roughly 100 plus appointments a year. You're telling me, even without knowing the ratios perfectly, but if you have 100 appointments a year, you know you're going to make money. And 100 sounds like a lot, but if you break it down a week, it's 2 appointments a week, and you could do them in 1 day. If you're part-time and you're right, do it on a Saturday. Your appointment is between 1 and 5 o'clock on Saturdays. I don't know. I'm just telling you, there's a lot of ways that you can finagle the I'm busy thing, but you can't go weeks or months without appointments. That's why I'm saying everything else doesn't matter. This is why I get frustrated a little bit, even though on one hand, I think people should read more and study more and practice more and watch more. But at the same time, I see people, they do everything but this, right? They want to read this book, and you got to learn all these products and, research 10,000 mutual funds and, 15 different variable annuities, and they got to get their CFP, and they got to get their Series 26, and they got to get their Series 72. And in their heart of hearts, they know it's avoidance behavior, because it lets them think they're doing the work without doing the real work, which they don't want to do, which is talk to humans. The good news about that is everybody else feels the same way. I feel the same way. Julian, who's our number 2 producer, feels the same way. Nobody really wants to do that. Now, once you're in the conversation, like appointments, right? I remember going on appointments and knocking on, this was way back in the day, right? Knocking on the door, almost hoping they weren't home so that I didn't have to do the appointment, right? But then I could tell myself it wasn't my fault. I did what I could do. But the funny thing is, once I got in there, within 5 minutes, maximum 10 minutes, and you're going and blowing, you're all good. It's never as bad as you think it is. Okay? But that's the rubber hits the road on appointments. Okay? And then finally, closing. We just call it revenue here, but basically closing. As Tom Hopkins says, you don't get paid to give presentations, you get paid to close. So they're all important in their own way. And you could argue at the end of the day, the most important is the revenue, but that's not going to come as you get appointments. That's going to come to get prospecting. But you could do all these without reading a single book. You could do all of these without getting anything but your Series 6 and 63 and your life insurance license. You could do all of these things without researching 10,000 mutual funds. You know what to do. Get the growth fund, growth portfolio by American funds. There you go. Research done. That's what you need to do for long-term investing. If it's a college fund, use the American funds, college target date funds. Done. That's how quickly training is, because people have come before you have already figured it all out. This is what you need to do. Prospecting, setting appointments, and revenue. There's a lot in between. You got to get referrals. You've got to know how to do a presentation, of course. But if you could even, I don't want you to do this, I just say this to make a point. You could even not even practice any scripts, just by, watch a couple of our videos and then just start doing it. It's back to the, steering a parked car. The flip side of you can't steer a parked car is that you can steer a moving car. Maybe it's a better way of saying it. So if you get moving, you'll figure stuff out. Oh, that didn't work. Oh, I could have sworn they'd ask me about this, and no one ever did. And wow, I never thought of this objection, but like 4 people have asked me that. That's what you realize in the real world. It's totally different than what you're theorizing right now, the way the business is going to go. If you don't have 50 clients yet, you're still brand new. And once you get past 50, you've probably seen at least every common type of situation, question, not just from the client, but even the financial situation, some weird, right? Things that you can't think of when you're newer. Now, I don't think you should do that. I think you should do both. I think you should also read and study and do scripts and role play and practice and drill and rehearse and watch all the videos and watch all the training and which is what I did. That's how I learned. I just absorbed everything. But then you've also got to make sure you work. But if you had to pick between the two, and you don't have to pick between the two, I say it only to make a point, but if you had to pick between the two, if God came to you and said, you've got 2 approaches to the business, get all the licenses, learn everything, read everything, but I'm going to take away the work ethic, or you have a work ethic, but I'm not going to let you read anything or get anything but the Series 663 in life, obviously you pick this one, because that's the real work. And by the way, a lot of people claim, I want to go out there and help people. Well, then start doing that. Then start working, because you can't help people. You're not helping people because you have a CFP. Or because you have a Series 72. Because you're not in front of anyone that needs that. You got to get in front of people that actually need their help, right? It's like learning everything there is about a soup kitchen, but never opening one up or never working in one. You've got to actually do the thing. This is the thing. And this is the epiphany for me. I know this is almost a little bit self-evident, but maybe you're in a place you need to hear this. I know I was. For me, it's very similar for me on the recruiting standpoint. I got to prospect X number of people a day, or methods. I've got to have X number of recruiting interviews, and then I've got to get those people productive. For me, the closing or the revenue is when those people become productive, which is why I'm doing the videos. This is why I'm doing this, or part of why I'm doing this. But I can't just do videos and training and all this. I've got to actually get people, right? So it's the same for me when I made my switch to my business. And it's not easy, but you've got to do the actual work, right? Okay, so now let's move on a little bit. And actually kind of the closing thing, which is a great concept. Let me get rid of this. All right, there we go. Law of large numbers. So I've already given you some of the numbers, especially the prospecting one in regards to get to 1,000 prospects. But I want to talk to you about, really it's right in front of you. It's the law, it is the law, all these things, all the averages, and we have the closing ratios, which I'm not going to get into now. We have the 50,000 income game plan, which I give you portions of it now. And these are all ratios and numbers. And for someone like me, I love it because it basically says if I do this, then I will get that, or at least the odds are this will happen. And if I do that, then the odds are that will happen. So it gives me it's a game plan. So I'm building a game plan based on ratios. But all these ratios only work when you apply them to large numbers. That's why I made the comment a moment ago about you have to have 50 clients. It's not just ratios, even just experiences. You can't go on 3 appointments, and based on those 3 appointments, you have an insight into the business. It doesn't work like that, because those 3 appointments could be, in fact, totally common and normal. But that's coincidental. They could also be weird, and plus you're not the same person you will be when you do your 26th appointment. Okay. Now, when you do your 75th appointment, it's not going to be much different than probably your 49th. But your 25th appointment will be a lot different than your 12th. Because you're completely learning, right? What you think is important in the beginning is completely different. And so this goes to work ethic, because the most important thing you can do, if you are legally licensed in the physical state you're in right now is get on appointments. Prospect and get in front of someone to tell your story. If you don't know how to tell the story, you don't know what story to tell, or you're not sure, ask me. Go on the wiki. Ask me, and then I'll point you or help you and walk you through it. But the point is, you need to get out there. Everything else is incidental, and it's only an infrastructure around the fundamental, which is those three things. And to get any kind of insight or lessons from all this, or make money, is you have to apply, as you see on the screen, the law of large numbers. Then it makes a difference. And if that's why, as much as it's almost contradictory, as much as I talk about self-improvement and scripting, listen, if the guy that doesn't do any scripts, or gal, is gender neutral, doesn't do any scripts or all, but just has a work ethic like a mule and just talks to, 20, 25 people a day. I used to make 100 cold calls a day, by the way. I did that for 7 months when I moved to California from scratch, built my business it was from February to August, 5 days a week, made 100 cold calls I don't recommend doing it. And it was for recruiting, not for clients. And I built my entire California business based on that 7 months. I worked like a mule, just every day. Drove to the office. I did it from the office. So I would be just every single day. I went those 7 months. There wasn't a single week I didn't have one guest at my business meeting. I used to do business meetings like live where people would come in, like an interview, but it was a group session, small groups, 2 people, 10 people, sometimes 20 people. But I didn't go a single week without having at least one new guest for 7 months. That's just my work ethic. And that was kind of part of this epiphany, was I realized, yes, I knew what I was doing. I was already into business for, 15, 16 years at the time. Well, not that long, maybe 12 years. But what I realized was, what I thought to myself was, I am pretty good at the business, halfway decent. I'm a scripter. I need to know what to do. I need to have everything dots, I's dotted, T's crossed. But what I did also realize was, I could have said a crappy script. But if I say it to enough people, it almost wouldn't have mattered. And it's not on here, but Nick Murray says it a lot. Says, it doesn't matter what you say, only how many people you say it to. Now, it's an exaggeration, but just learn the coffee script and just say it to a shit ton of people. Pardon me. Pardon me on both accounts there. That's it. Do those 3 things, and prospecting's most important, and do 2 to 4 a day, do 5 days a week, do it 50 weeks a year, if not more. Right, this, by the way, that's just the 50,000. You want to make 100,000, you double your numbers. But if you do that, I promise you will win. Remember, that's the only time you're really working, is when you're doing that. But the good news is, if you do that, then you have success. See, then you can start refining. That's back to the car. See, now that the car is moving and you got some momentum going, you got the basic handling. You want to get the basic handling of the car, you got to go just drive. You can't just practice in the garage. You got to actually get the wheels turning while you're driving, and then you get used to it. Now you can start fine-tuning and tweaking and maybe get instruction from an ex-Formula One driver, whatever. Same thing here. Once you move, maybe I do want to add a CFP. Maybe I do want to add a CHP. Maybe I do want to get the Series 65. Yeah, go make 100,000 first, which is the base entry level into financial planning. Make 6 figures, and then you can think about. And I promise you, when you get there, and now you have all this experience behind you, a lot of the stuff that you thought was important won't be, and stuff that you didn't even think about is now all of a sudden important. But the only way to do that is applying the law of large numbers to those 3 things: prospecting, actual appointments in front of real people, new appointments, and finally building revenue / closing sales. That's it. Work.